Welcome to another FPL video. This is going to be my team selection for Game Week 6. I'm also going to be recapping on how Game Week 5 went, and I've got 2 free transfers heading into the upcoming game week. What am I going to be doing? Which players am I thinking of bringing in? You're going to be finding out all of my current transfer plans, the captaincy, and all of that good stuff in this video. So without further ado, let's head straight into the video. This was a very eventful week in FPL, even before a ball was even kicked, with Benrahma, Rafinha and other players having injury doubts, obviously Alexander-Arnold having illness and not featuring, Ferran Torres, Mahrez, Robertson, all subject to rotation as well, so quite a lot happened. Even Mendy in the final day of the game week, he actually has an injury, and Kepa stepped in Chelsea's 3-0 victory over Spurs. So a lot happened. Even Ben Foster got a game with Backman having a little injury, and just in my deadline stream, you could actually see me put Foster in instead of Sanchez, just in case, you know, Foster played. I didn't expect him to. I didn't have any inkling of Backman being injured, but I went with Foster. I just thought that Watford had a better chance of keeping a clean sheet than Brighton. And end of the day, both of them didn't keep a clean sheet, but at least with Foster, he got a save point. With Sanchez, he got a yellow card and he conceded a goal late on to Jamie Vardy. But there again, you know, just a difference of 2 points, and Sanchez is still a good 4.5 million keeper, but he's just not going to get you those save points that you probably want. I don't expect Foster to continue to start, but it is still a possibility, so let's wait and see what happens there. He was pretty unlucky, I guess, with the Pukki goal. He made himself big, but Pukki had a very good finish there. And in terms of the defence, I mean, there's kind of mixed bag, really. I mean, this week especially, Trent didn't play, and he was kind of one of the highly thought of players, even for the captaincy, and he didn't even feature. I think he could have easily gotten 9 points or above if he had started. Ben White, though, probably the standout this week with 7 points. He got a bonus, and to be honest, if you look at the actual performance, I don't know how he got it, of course. In terms of aerial duels, I think he won the most in that game, despite people labelling him as pretty weak in the air. But he had a pretty poor performance, I'd say, out of all of the back four for Arsenal. And he almost cost the Gunners with that back pass to Ramsdale, and they actually gave a penalty initially and then rescinded the decision after checking VAR. So Ben White was very lucky there. But I'll take those 7 points gladly. Luke Shaw conceded a penalty late on after having already conceded to Benrahma and West Ham. And end of the day, De Gea saved him there. Mark Noble came on and missed his first penalty. So yeah, you see what I mean. I mean, this week has been so eventful. Luke Shaw, a bit disappointing. He still shows a lot of promise going forward. But once again with Man United, and I've been saying this for quite a while now, I would probably expect them to keep more clean sheets during the kind of difficult fixture period from Game Week 7 onwards than they have been doing in the first 6 game weeks, where they just haven't been keeping too many clean sheets. And then Connor Cody, very, very poor, 0 points. I mean, Brentford, at least, you know, I had Tony. I did say that if Brentford were to score, I hope it's Tony. So I got what I wished for there, but yeah, Wolves were just so poor. They were off it, and Marçal considered the penalty. So yeah, Wolves just not their day. And in terms of expected goals conceded, I mean, I'm pretty sure in Game Week 5 it was just as bad, just in that game week alone, as the first 4 combined. And they had some very tough fixtures over the opening few game weeks. Ayling, once again, very disappointing and should have conceded even earlier than he did. Leeds are just so poor defensively this season, and they face West Ham next, so just not really confident in Ayling. He is the weak link in my team, I'd say, along with arguably Tony because of the fixtures, but Ayling is really a big weak link. That's why I definitely, if possible, I'd love to upgrade him to a Chelsea defender or City defender, and then maybe do a Shaw to yet another Chelsea defender heading into Game Week 7 or 8. So that's something that's definitely in the back of my mind, and it has been for quite a while, but Ayling has just not been doing it. Of course, the only time he produced a return was that amazing goal against Manchester United, but I had him benched on that occasion, and he's also flagged as an injury doubt. So, and Leeds, if you look at their team, they are depleted at the back. They've got so many injuries, and we just don't know who's even going to play for them in those backline positions. In terms of the midfielders, a bit more promising, although Obviously, Jota and Greenwood, very disappointing. And what I will say about Greenwood, actually, kind of to start off with the disappointments, he's had 2 shots since Ronaldo has come in. Obviously, it's only been 2 game weeks, and he's been getting into some very good positions, but players like Ronaldo just haven't been finding him, and it's a bit frustrating, of course, but we kind of already knew this could happen with Greenwood, and he's still a very clinical player. He has deserved more, I guess, and his end product is obviously very good, but I just don't expect him to kind of maintain the level of consistency that he was doing in the first few game weeks before Ronaldo arrived. And even then, against Newcastle, when he did get the assist for Ronaldo's goal, that was very fortunate because Woodman did botch that, really. And once again, against West Ham, it is a tough game. It's a bit difficult to analyse it from that perspective, but not very promising when Ronaldo has 13 shots in 2 game weeks and Greenwood has 2. You kind of see where the direction is heading towards in regards to who is having the bulk of the shots and the most of the chances created by Manchester United. Speaking of chances, Diogo Jota missed an open goal pretty much against Crystal Palace. I have no idea how, and he just becomes a points dodging machine whenever I get him in, and I'm pretty sure even going back to last season, whenever I've got him in, he's got like 1 goal pretty much, and he just never does it. But look, Jota still has some good fixtures sprinkled in between. However, you've got Manchester City and Man United within the next 4 game weeks, so it's a bit difficult to kind of justify keeping him. But because of Greenwood, you know, kind of regressing and his minutes being put into question now, with more players coming back for Manchester United and the Champions League coming into the mix, I may actually get rid of Greenwood and keep Jota for now, but both of them are a bit on the chopping block at the moment, and so was Benrahma before this game week, but of course very lucky, I have to say, with that deflected goal, but got maximum bonus points. And of course, in Antonio's absence, he was kind of one of the main goal-scoring threats, but I think West Ham definitely missed Antonio, and Benrahma can still thrive with Antonio on the pitch, of course, as they did in the first 2 game weeks. I still have my doubts about Benrahma. It's not like he was posing amazing underlying stats in game week 5, but of course, they were facing Manchester United, who are right now, you know, right up there at the top of the league, really, along with Chelsea and Liverpool. So, look, Benrahma is a great option around his price, but just don't expect consistency from him, of course. But that's 3 double-digit returns for him, and very happy with him. He's finally delivered since getting him into my team. And then speaking of someone who always delivers, Mohamed Salah, captain, and it was a bit of a no-brainer. And if you didn't captain him this week, chances are you probably did suffer a bit unless you nailed the captaincy with someone like Tony, for example. What a performance by Salah, and both the kind of chances, or should I say the assist and goal he got, came from a set piece, from a corner, which is very interesting, of course. So the first one, the assist, was from a shot he had, which was saved by Gaeta, and then Mane got the tap in, you could say, and then he actually scored at the end with a very good finish. So Salah, look, he can score any type of goal, really. He's on penalties. We already know how good he is. And for me, even on a wild card, and despite some tough fixtures coming up for Liverpool, I'm just not thinking about selling him, even if it's to keep Ronaldo and then make kind of a little restructure of my team, a little reshuffle, and then take money away from my midfield and put it into the attack to get Lukaku in. I'm just not really feeling it in terms of getting rid of Salah. I want to keep him. He's been so consistent. And speaking of consistency, Ronaldo has returned in every single game so far since returning to Manchester United, and that includes in the Champions League Matchday 1 fixture against Young Boys. And once again, he scored and still had a few chances. You know, he was getting into some good positions. He looked sharp, and Ronaldo's Ronaldo. He is fixture-proof in my opinion, but if you look at Serie A in recent seasons, he tends to be a bit more of a flat-track bully. So if you look at, for example, a period from game week 15 onwards when Manchester United have insane fixtures against pretty much the lower half of the Premier League table, that's when you really want to get him in. But when you have such a very bad fixture run from game week 7 onwards up until, let's say, game week 14, you could arguably just go from Ronaldo to Lukaku. Having said that, it's going to be easier said than done because Ronaldo's been so good and consistent, and he's going to be going up in price. You're probably going to be losing value by the time you sell him, and it's not as easy as that. And we saw Lukaku against Spurs, of course. They won 3-0 and Lukaku didn't even get any goals or assists. But of course, with Lukaku, he's also a bit similar to Ronaldo in terms of in recent years, he's a bit more of a flat track bully, and you really want to target the fixtures when it comes to these sorts of players. But Ronaldo can haul against anyone, and that is proven. West Ham was a reasonably difficult fixture, and he did get a goal. And then Ivan Toney, I have to say, I was very surprised. I only really kept him because I didn't have 2 free transfers available. Otherwise, I probably would have gotten rid of Ivan Toney heading into game week 6 or game week 5 even. And yeah, to be honest, Ivan Toney delivered his first double-digit return of the season. Even Mbeumo, he looked really good and could have scored yet another goal. And Wolves were just so off it, to be honest. So Brentford deserved the win. Still have my doubts about Toney, especially with the fixtures coming up. But if you look, for example, at the fixtures, I think around game week 11. So let's see. Yeah, game week 10 to 12. He's basically facing 3 of the worst defences in the league in Burnley, Norwich and Newcastle so far this season. Of course, it's a bit of an arse to kind of keep him through games like Liverpool, West Ham, Chelsea and Leicester to get to that in the first place. And then straight after that nice little fixture run he has there, he faces Everton, Tottenham, Leeds, Watford's fine, and then Man United. So really, if you're looking at it for Ivan Toney, he's got really poor fixtures up until game week 17 really. Then they kind of turn from game week 18. But really, if you want a good fixture run from Ivan Toney, you're going to have to be looking at game week 25 onwards. That's a really long time, to be honest. But still, obviously, he delivered. Makes it a bit more difficult to get rid of him. And I was always kind of had in the back of my mind to downgrade him to a 4.5 million striker, then invest that money into the midfield or defence, and if not, maybe just move him on to a Bamford or someone like that. But at this moment in time, of course, there are so many possibilities, as you'll see. Trent should be fine, by the way, in my opinion. It is just an illness and it's not COVID related, so I expect him to be back in game week 6, but don't hold me to that. That's just my kind of personal opinion. Antonio's going to be back now from suspension, which is really good. And yeah, just really, I still think he's my favourite striker around his price. That's why I wanted to keep him. And then Brownhill is just Brownhill really, and he can still maybe get a goal or 2 this season, but not really going to think about him too much. Moving on to game week 6. This is how my team is currently lining up. Of course, Trent is flagged, and that is a bit of a concern, but once again, like I said, I would expect him to start in game week 6, and he'll definitely be back by game week 7, and he's not someone that I plan on selling anyway, to be honest. And if possible, even if, let's say, in the kind of unlikely case where he is being benched again and he's missing out in game week 6, I'd still probably keep him, but once again, I'm pretty optimistic with that. Sanchez against Crystal Palace away. I could arguably play Foster against Newcastle at home, but once again, I'm just not even too sure if Foster will start. That doesn't really matter anyway. If he doesn't, he can just come off for Sanchez. But I just back Brighton a bit more defensively at this moment in time, but I may change my mind. And Newcastle, despite their struggles, are still capable of scoring in most fixtures. So yeah, Newcastle aren't the worst offensively, but as an overall team, of course, and especially defensively, they've been exceptionally poor, to be honest. And the rest of the defence, I'm not too confident about. Of course, I'd love to have Manchester City and Chelsea defenders, but they do face each other this week, so it's a bit of an awkward time to bring them in. But if I'm being completely honest, I'm still thinking about it, and I'll be talking about it later on in my transfer section. So we've got Cody away to Southampton, and considering how impressive Southampton have been, it's not really the easiest fixture. It could maybe be a 0-0, and both teams, I guess, would take that. But once again, Wolves haven't been filling me with too much confidence, especially defensively. And then you look at Southampton, of course. They haven't shown too much going forward, but their defensive resilience has actually been quite impressive with draws against Manchester United and Manchester City. I mean, I'm completely surprised. And fair play to any of you who have Livramento, for example, and he got 5 points against Manchester City. So, of course, the Premier League is completely unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. But Cody, away to Southampton, it's not the worst fixture in the world. But to be honest, I just don't really see a clean sheet happening there if I'm trying to kind of predict what's going to happen. Shaw against Villa at home, it's not the worst fixture in the world. Of course, Villa did put Everton to the sword towards the end of the game with a 3-0 victory. So I'm not as confident in a clean sheet now as I was maybe a week or 2 ago. And I think Watkins has really helped Villa's attack. They've got another dimension there. And with him and Ings, they're just causing defences all sorts of problems. So I think Watkins has made a huge difference, even if he hasn't hauled yet. And he could even still get a goal against Manchester United. And Watkins is someone to look out for, I think, in future game weeks, as I pointed out after his performance against Chelsea. And then in terms of the midfield, I'm pretty happy with it on paper, but there still may be changes, and I'll be explaining why in my transfer section. Once again, Villa at home is a decent fixture for Ronaldo and Greenwood, but I'm just not too sure if Greenwood will start. A lot will depend on the Champions League, or at least in future game weeks, should I say. And that is mainly looking towards, I think, the Everton fixture in game week 7. But with Greenwood, he might be rested against Villa, and then he plays in the Champions League, and then he'll play against Everton. But I think his minutes will be more limited from now on. And with Ronaldo at the fray and at the forefront of United's attack, I'm just not so sure about Greenwood and him being as productive of an FPL asset as he has been in the first few game weeks and also towards the end of last season. And speaking of kind of end product and all of that, we've got Jota. I'm just not really convinced by him. Of course, I brought him in for a -4 hit with Ronaldo ahead of game week 4, and he just hasn't been delivering so far. But of course, I love to give these players more opportunities and just not give them, 2 or 3 game weeks. I mean, a good example would be Benrahma. I brought him in ahead of game week 3. He blanked in game weeks 3 and 4. I could have easily gotten rid of him in game week 5, but I kept him. I didn't want to make an excessive transfer, and the patience paid off, even if it was rather fortunate. Maybe it is the right thing to do with Jota, and I did actually talk about it in my reaction stream. I actually think he might score against Brentford, but with that Manchester City and Manchester United kind of fixtures in between coming very soon, I'm not too sure about keeping him in anyway in the long term. And when Firmino comes back, it's just a bit of a difficult situation. But of course, there's so many midfielders right now. There's Rafinha, who if he's fit, he could be a really good option. There's Ismaila Sarr for the next few game weeks, even Damari Gray up until game week 12. And then when the fixtures turn for Crystal Palace, Gallagher is a really good option on paper with the underlying stats. So there's so many different midfielders you can go for. And that's not even to mention Harvey Barnes, who's been off form. But one day I think he will be a good asset once again. And Leicester will be even better offensively. But yeah, obviously Jota against Brentford away. Not the greatest fixture in the world, to be honest. Brentford have been very good. And in terms of big chances conceded, I think only City have conceded fewer. Both of them have pretty much been right up there along with Chelsea in terms of the defence. And then Salah, you could easily captain him despite Brentford being, I'd say, a tough cookie to crack. But at this moment in time, I'm probably going to be favouring Ronaldo, and I'll be explaining why in a little bit. But Salah's still a great option, and even if he blanks here against Brentford, I'm not going to panic. And of course, some tough fixtures coming up for Liverpool, including Manchester City. But I'm not going to be kind of jumping the gun on Salah anytime soon. Then Benrahma, I'm happy that the patience paid off. And I'm mainly looking at the Leeds and Brentford fixtures. That's why I wanted to keep him. But then after that period, West Ham have some very tough fixtures, and that's when you could arguably go off Benrahma and off double West Ham attack and maybe just stick with Antonio. That's something that I could be doing in the future, but once again, I think the main priority in terms of my transfers is going to be bringing in Chelsea defenders and even Lukaku at some point, and maybe a City defender too. I think maybe possibly going big at the back, maybe with 3 or 4 really good defenders from Liverpool, City and Chelsea. I think it could be the way to go, because you just build a base for a long period of time, maybe 10 to 15 game weeks or so, and it also kind of prevents you from having to wildcard. And of course, that's going to be a big kind of talking point. I may wildcard in game week 7 or 8. I think game week 8 might look a bit better for reasons I've explained in reaction stream and the deadline stream. But honestly, if I can make free transfers or even take a -4 hit and get to a really good team for an extended period of time, I may just save the wildcard, honestly, maybe until game week 14 or 15 or another game week. And looking at the attack, obviously Ivan Toney against Liverpool at home, it's not ideal. And if I do make a few transfers, he'll probably be moving to the bench. But having said that, I still think that Ivan Toney and Brentford could score a goal against Liverpool. Maybe not 2 or 3, but if Brentford score, the chances are Toney's going to be involved. Antonio once again against Leeds. To be honest, I think he's a good captaincy shout this week, and him and Benrahma could do the damage. Leeds' defence, as I talked about before, is really poor. So Antonio, you could captain him instead of Salah, Ronaldo, and all these other players at your disposal. And then Ronaldo, because he's at home, because he's facing Villa, which is not the easiest fixture, but I just think that Ronaldo and Bruno will do well in this fixture. One of them will get the points, and I would expect United to win that game, score maybe 2 or 3 goals. I mean, Ronaldo, as I just said before, he's had 13 shots in 2 games. He's got one of the highest expected goals, shots in the box, shots overall, and he's just looking so sharp at the moment. So I think he's a great shout for the captaincy, and once again, this season goals at home are up, and it's just a big difference compared to last season. The crowds just give that extra oomph to the home team, and I just think it makes a huge difference. And for me, Ronaldo is captainable against pretty much anyone, but especially against these kind of lower end teams. Villa aren't a bad team, and of course, I think they will improve with Watkins coming in. But still, I would expect Ronaldo to make the difference, and he's just getting the bulk of the chances for Manchester United. Looking at the bench, is a bit weak this week. Foster, of course, I've got a little goalkeeper dilemma there, potentially, if Foster were to start against Newcastle. White against Tottenham at home, it could be a draw. I mean, Tottenham have a very defensive side, and it could be a 0-0 maybe. But I don't know, it's a North London derby. I would expect there to be maybe a few goals in that game. And yeah, that will be a very interesting one to see. Ayling against West Ham, I just don't expect anything. I'd be very surprised if Leeds were to keep a clean sheet. And then Brownhill against Leicester away, you never know, he could maybe get an attack in return, but it's just not something that you would expect most times. So that's pretty much how I'm lining up at this moment in time. It's not the greatest lineup, and of course, if Trent is out, then I would be struggling a bit at the back, especially when I'm not too confident in Cody anyway. But that's my current team selection. Let's look at my transfer plans. So on screen you see my team, but just in the transfer section, and there are so many different things I can actually do. And I put a poll out asking you lot for your opinions, and I put a lot of different kind of scenarios in there, and a lot of you said the kind of best thing to do is to get rid of either Jota or Greenwood and Tony, get Ismaila Sarr for one of those midfielders, and then get Bamford in for Tony. But there's another possibility which I've considered, and this is something looking to the long term. I've always wanted a Chelsea defender, so what I could do is do the same thing, get rid of Jota or Greenwood for maybe an Ismaila Sarr. So let's say, for example, we get rid of Jota, then we're going to get Ismaila Sarr, and then you'll see here, I pretty much, in my opinion, get rid of the kind of big weak link in my team, which is Ayling. You know, get rid of him. I've got 6.3 million in the bank. I could easily get Cancelo, I could get Alonso, Rudiger, Reece James, all of these sorts of players. But if I'm being completely honest, looking at the fixtures from Game Week 7 onwards, looking at Chelsea's defence, I really want to target them. And from all along, I've been saying that Rudiger is, in my opinion, the most nailed defender alongside Azpilicueta maybe. And of course, he scored a goal, which obviously increases his appeal. He's not going to be doing that every single week, but he could maybe get 3 to 5 goals per season. What's really intrigued me actually is Alonso. At 5.7 million, his price is going to go up yet again. He's been playing every single game ahead of Chilwell, and even in the Champions League, I'm not completely sure why. And the way I see it is, as soon as I get Marcos Alonso in, he's going to be benched by Chilwell, at least from time to time, and that will obviously be a big shame, but it is a possibility. But either way, based on kind of my visions for my team, going into the future, I am considering having Marcos Alonso and Rudiger potentially as my two defenders. I think they're the two standouts at this moment in time, and I'd probably say in third place is Christensen at 5 million, just like I said in my reaction stream before the Chelsea game. And the reason why I say that is because he's only 5 million, which for a Chelsea defender is exceptional value. He's not going to get too many bonus points or attacking returns, but Christensen will either play, probably get the clean sheet, or he's not going to play at all. He's not the type of player like Reece James who can come on for 20-30 minutes and give you those one-pointers that you dread. Reece James, of course, when he starts, he's one of the best Chelsea assets you can own. The problem is you're going to have to stomach those one-pointers eventually, and he's going to be rotated a lot more times than probably one of the other defenders I mentioned, including Marcos Alonso, at least in this moment in time. So any one of them, Christensen, Marcos Alonso or Rudiger, I'm considering getting one of them for Luke Ayling. So let's say, for example, right now, based on Marcos Alonso's very impressive offensive performance against Spurs, I'm considering getting him in at this moment in time, have 0.6 million in the bank. I've used my 2 free transfers, and going into Game Week 7, I would have 1 free transfer. What would I do? Based on Ronaldo facing Everton, I think he could score in that game and even be a good captaincy shout. And Southampton have been decent defensively. It's not like Lukaku is definitely guaranteed to get a hat-trick or something like that. Of course, it can happen, but I would be kind of more happy to stick with Ronaldo for another game week or so. So what I would consider is maybe getting rid of Luke Shaw heading into Game Week 7 too, based on kind of current Game Week 6 plans, and then get another Chelsea defender. And in this case, I could go for Rudiger or Christensen. So in Game Week 7, this is how my team would be looking like. And then going into Game Week 8, that's when I could do Ronaldo to Lukaku, and also Greenwood could make way for someone else, whether it's a Ferran Torres heading into Manchester City's very good fixture run from Game Week 8 onwards, or I could move him on to Rafinha, who should be definitely fine by then, and he's got decent fixtures for the next 5 or 6 game weeks from that point onwards. So that's kind of my transfer plans at the moment. Of course, there's different ways I can go about it. I can always maybe, instead of, getting rid of Jota, I could keep him and get rid of Tony instead, and then get Alonso or Rudiger at the back. But I do like having Sarr for the next few game weeks. And look, I'm not going to overreact with him. Of course, he got 15 points against Norwich, a fantastic performance. I still don't trust Watford defensively, but because of those next 2 fixtures, Newcastle at home and Leeds away, I think he can do extremely well. And even in some of the fixtures after that, they're not necessarily too bad. Of course, he's got a great history against Liverpool at home, at least from that one fixture where they broke Liverpool's unbeaten run 2 seasons ago. There's Everton away. I don't think that's the worst fixture in the world either. Southampton at home is decent. Of course, not great. Maybe it shouldn't be marked 2 on the FDR for Watford. but still not a bad fixture. And Arsenal away. After that, though, yeah, the fixtures are really poor for Watford. So if you want to get Ismaila Sarr, like I'm considering at the moment, it would be kind of a short-term pick. And if you are wildcarding soon, I think he is an ideal player to get in if you haven't already. But once again, I don't trust Watford offensively and just as a unit in general. They're a very inconsistent team, and of course they just played Norwich, who are probably going to be bottom of the league, or if not, they're going to be relegated. So it's not really the kind of best fixture to judge a player. And of course there's Demarai Gray as well. He faces Norwich next. And one thing that really appeals to me about Newcastle is that Matt Ritchie, you know, going up against Sarr potentially, I just see a lot of points there for him. And yeah, I think Newcastle defensively are just that poor. They've got the worst expected goals conceded. And that's why Ismaila Sarr could be a really good short-term pick. But then when you look at my defence, short-term it might not look the best, you know, getting Marcos Alonso, Rudiger or another Chelsea defender ahead of Manchester City, but they could still keep a clean sheet there. And long-term, I think they're just worth it. And it also prevents me potentially from using the wild card, because I'd rather use the wild card to get out of these kind of Chelsea defenders potentially, or, you know, triple Chelsea overall, and some of these players who are probably short-term picks like Sarr, and then have a more long-term team going up until maybe game week 25 or something. So at this moment in time, what I would want to do potentially is save the wildcard for later on down the line. But let me know what you think I should do with my transfers. At this moment in time, what I'm most appealed by is getting Ismaila Sarr and a Chelsea defender for 2 free transfers, getting rid of Ayling and Jota or Greenwood. Let me know who you would get rid of between Greenwood and Jota. And then, yeah, going into the future, I'd be getting another Chelsea defender to boot and probably Lukaku up front, and then making some kind of minor alterations game week between game week. Of course, Tony, keeping him during this kind of difficult fixture run for Brentford isn't ideal, but once again, around this price, he's probably still one of the best, and this is something I've been talking about even before his haul against Wolves. I'm not really too happy with him, but still probably one of the best around his price. But yeah, those fixtures are really poor. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. And once again, let me know what you think, not only about my team, but also your teams, your situations, transfers, the captaincy. Are you going to be going with Antonio, Ronaldo or Salah? Let me know. And as always, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm active on those platforms, and you can always send in your teams so I can rate them in future Rate My Team videos, as long as you send a clean cropped image. So thank you very much for watching. That's kind of a detailed overview, very detailed overview of my transfer plans, my thought process, and captaincy, team selection, and all of that. And of course, I'm going to try to leave it late on, but maybe some early transfers are on the cards, especially to prevent maybe a price rise or two. But once again, I don't think that should be the kind of forefront of our ideas and plans. We shouldn't always rush it. I haven't done it so far this season, but I may make some early transfers and it could easily backfire. So let's wait and see what happens there. And the UCL Fantasy Team Selection video will also be coming out very soon. And the same goes for deadline streams, reaction streams for FPL, and much more for both UCL Fantasy and FPL. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.